1984 is funnier than you remember. This is Brazil.
Hey everybody, welcome to Seen and Heard. This is the podcast where two entertainment assistants go through the Sight and Sound Top 100 Greatest Films of All Time list. I'm Greg.
I'm Jackie.
And we're here for a special pick this week. But before we say what it is, you already know what it is because you've seen the title and we've already just said it. Yeah, we have a website. If you have not checked out our website, we do have a newish website. It is www.seenandheardpod.com. That is SCENE and heardpod.com. Check it out. It's lots of good stuff there. Also, if you guys could go to any platform that you're listening to the podcast on and just give us a rating or drop a review or something, all that stuff really helps. So any of that would be greatly appreciated.
So instead of watching a movie on the Sight and Sound Top 100 Greatest Films of All Time list, this is a special episode. It's part of our Personal Print series. It's a series in which we choose a film that means a lot to us, that belongs on our personal Greatest Films of All Time list, that we would have a film print of if we could, if we were cool enough. This week is Greg's turn. Greg, what is your personal print this week?
Yeah, so it's a series where it's movies that are personal to us. It's really right there in the title, and they're the mandate is they can't already be on the Sight and Sound list, at least the top 100. So this week I have chosen Terry Gilliam's Brazil from 1985.
Directed by Terry Gilliam, Brazil was released in 1985. The screenplay was co-written by Gilliam, Tom Stoppard, and Charles McOwen. Cinematography by Roger Pratt. Brazil tells the story of Sam Lowry, a low-level bureaucrat living in a dystopian, totalitarian society heavily reliant on poorly working technology. To escape this drab monotony, Sam escapes into daydreams in which he's a flying hero saving the woman of his dreams from a samurai-like villain. A case of mistaken identity in the Ministry of Information, where Sam works, leads to the arrest, torture, and killing of an innocent man. This leads Sam to the home of the wrongfully arrested man, where he discovers that the woman of his dreams is living upstairs, a truck driver named Jill. The two are eventually suspected of being terrorists, and Sam is arrested. As Sam is about to be interrogated, an elaborate adventure of escape ensues, ending with Sam in the arms of Jill driving off into the sunset. However, the curtain is pulled back to reveal the escape was all happening inside Sam's head. He is declared insane by his interrogators as they walk away, leaving Sam alone in the torture chamber, humming the eponymous song, Brazil.
Yeah, and Jill dies.
Yes, so we discovered before we started recording that I watched a cut version of the film, and we'll talk about the different cuts of the film, but in the version I watched on Amazon Prime, it's missing a scene after Sam is arrested where he's being interrogated by Mr. Helpman, who's like the head of the Ministry of Information. And in the interrogation, he reveals that Jill died during arrest, that she was killed. So just
you watched
wanted to point that out.
It was the American cut. And this is why I know we talked about when we did 2001, HBO Max cut out the whole like sort of intro to 2001.
Yeah.
And this is another instance. Sometimes people ask me like, Greg, why are you still into physical media? Like, why do you buy Blu-rays? It's because of this reason, because I don't want to be subjected to whatever the fuck butchered. It's like, no, I have the criterion so I can watch the full movie whenever I want. And I'm not just like subject to whatever the streaming services are like putting out there. In this case, a 10 minutes shorter version. So
anyway, the film stars Jonathan Pryce as Sam Lowry, Katherine Helmond as Jill. Robert De Niro plays the real man the ministry was after, Archibald Tuttle, who is a hilarious freelance air conditioner repairman who refuses to work for the government-operated central services due to his distaste for tedious paperwork procedures. The cast also includes Ian Holm as Lowry's boss, Michael Palin of Monty Python as his best friend Jack, an interrogator for information retrieval, the person who eventually basically tortures him to insanity. Katherine Helmond plays Sam's mother, and Jim Broadbent and Bob Hoskins have minor roles. They're
Yes,
really
they
fun.
do.
It was really great.
Yeah.
So the film has a really torrid distribution history. There's a documentary, actually, a whole documentary on it called Battle for Brazil. And essentially, Universal was distributing the film in the US. And I watched a clip from that doc. And according to the clip, Terry Gilliam talks in the clip. And he says that the moment that the first screening with the execs at Universal was done, he immediately knew he was in trouble.
Yeah.
You could just tell from the back of their necks and the fact that no one was moving. And it was, so he knew. So they were, basically they thought it was too dark. They were kind of, I don't know, worried about the subject matter and the comedy. And so they cut the film down to 90 minutes, complete with a Hollywood ending.
It's a happy ending. Yep.
Yeah.
It's called the Love Conquers All version.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is not what the movie's about. Meanwhile, though, so Terry Gilliam was showing his fully realized version of the film in these private screenings in Los Angeles. And it was in Europe. It was his version of the movie was already playing in Europe and it was successful. But people in Los Angeles were only seeing it at these private screenings that he was having. And he would invite, critics and filmmakers. And in 1985, the Los Angeles Film Critics Association named the movie Best Picture, despite not being released to the public. They all had just seen it from these private screenings. And
Which he
once they
wasn't
did
supposed
that,
to do, yeah.
Yeah, Universal, was not happy about that. But after that, they finally released his fully realized version of the movie.
He also took out a full page ad in the paper.
In Variety,
calling out the head of Universal, Sid Sheinberg. Sid Sheinberg, when are you going to release my movie, Brazil? So imagine getting the paper and seeing a full page ad with that, signed Terry Gilliam.
Yeah. And then afterwards, after it's released, Richard Corliss wrote in the Times, he wrote, "A terrific movie has escaped the asylum without a lobotomy," which is great.
Yeah.
I think it's a real victory and a real case for criticism in this
I think so
movie
too.
situation. Yeah, because
Critics saved the movie.
Yeah, they did. And I love that. I love stories like that because, I don't know, people are really skeptical about criticism.
People
and
are very
and
anti-critic these days because I think the popular mode of movies are superhero movies, which are honestly still reviewed pretty well. But I feel like critics over the last, I don't know if you feel this way, maybe the last 10 or 15 years, people are kind of down on critics. Oh, what do they know? I'm well,
you're one of those people.
I like certain critics.
Certain critics.
They have to earn my trust. But yes, it is a case of critics saving the day.
And it made me happy.
Yeah.
So the title of the film refers to the theme song. It's a song called Brazil by Ari Barroso, and it was his most famous English language song.
Yeah, from the 30s, I think, or 20s or 30s. Yeah.
And the film received 2 Oscar noms, screenplay and art direction. And it currently sits at number 54 on BFI's Greatest British Films of All Time list.
It's great. I love that.
But
Yeah.
That's Brazil. That is the battle for Brazil.
That is the battle for Brazil. Just because you mentioned Michael Palin, I'm such a huge... Well, first, I'm like any...
Are you a big Monty Python
I'm
fan?
a big Python fan, and Michael Palin is my favorite Python. Okay. I think he's the funniest, most charismatic Python. And I love them all, but I have a real soft spot for Michael Palin. And he released his so he used to diary every day. He used to journal. He actually inspired me to do it. And he released a series of books of just his diaries. And this is his diaries from 1980 to 1988, but it's when he made Brazil. Wow. I'm holding it. I'm showing to you. People can't see this, but this covers when he was making Brazil.
Let me see.
And then if you look at the first page here too. You can see something.
Wow. To Greg, enjoy the 80s. Yours, I'm guessing Michael Palin?
And then look below that.
PPGL.
Jay Lint. Jack Lint, which is his character from Brazil.
Oh.
Because I told him Brazil was one of my favorite movies.
Okay, in what world is this Michael Palin?
I don't know.
His signature is very illegible. I just want to point that out. How great. Where'd you meet him?
You know what? I'm ashamed to say I have not met him. If you go on his website, I think it's like michaelpalin.com. You know, I'm just going to plug it right now. It's like michaelpalin.com, or maybe it's .co.uk, but you can buy stuff and he'll inscribe it for free. You just
wonderful.
You write a little note. I was like, hey, my favorite movie is Brazil. And then his son, I had to like get in touch with customer service, and it was his son that like got back to me. So it's like a family thing. But
you should have got him on the podcast.
He's a busy guy. You know, since Python, he does a lot of like travel docs and stuff. Like he's had a bunch of BBC series where he travels the world. Like Michael Palin goes here, Michael Palin goes there. He's a man of the world. He's a good guy, smart guy.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, had to point
Very
it out.
cool.
So, Jackie, this was your first time seeing Brazil. Mm-hmm. So I want to hear what you have to say first before I say anything about Brazil.
Sure.
Having like, and tell me too, like, were you into Python before? Did you have a limited knowledge? Like, just give me the big picture here.
Limited knowledge, only seen Holy Grail.
Okay.
That's like...
Yeah, that's the big one. Yeah.
I mean, there's like Fish Called Wanda, but that's not really Python.
It's not Python, but it's great. And Michael Palin is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I love this movie. I think when I started watching it, and
wait. Hold on. I just have to correct you right there. You said you loved it, but earlier on Letterboxd, I saw you gave it 3.5 stars. So if you could explain that and then continue.
No, I don't want to do this. Not doing it, putting my foot down.
All right, put your foot down.
I loved it, okay?
Oh, you did?
Yes. And I don't need to justify loving it. No, not going to happen.
All right, sorry, continue.
It's hard to watch this movie and not think 1984. I mean, it's as simple as that. From the get-go. You know, it's like the first moment, it just screams it. It's that barging into the apartment, like that literally happens in 1984. You hear about these terrorist attacks, you know, in 1984, it's this war that the government has made up and they keep changing who they're fighting, and there's random explosions and they blame it on the enemy. Like it's 1984.
Oh, for sure.
And it's all centered around this romance. It's a man who falls in love, and so he goes against the system because he falls in love. So that was my initial thought. But then I thought, like, when did this movie come out? Sure enough, it was 1985. So I was like, okay, that's weird, 1984. Mm-hmm. And then, it just made me really nostalgic for like 80s comedies, because it has that quality. Like, it made me think of, obviously, Fish Called Wanda, but other things too. Like, I don't know, like, what's the one? Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, like that vibe, like that, like kind of planes, trains, automobiles, like just that 80s comedy. It made me like really miss that, really nostalgic for it. Obviously, this has so much more going for it. But yeah, and you know what? I thought about like that brand of comedy is really dead. It's really sad. And I was thinking about it throughout. I was like, why don't people make movies like this anymore?
Expensive.
No, not even this specific movie. I just think that like that comedy,
That's very British.
I suppose, yeah, but like
it's very British.
Like Vacation even.
Well, okay. I mean, I get what you're saying. I feel like Vacation though. Yeah,
After Hours.
Right. Yeah. Okay, good reference, because that's also a little dark and like
kind of absurdist.
Yeah, totally absurdist. Yeah. I know what you mean.
But yeah, it made me really, really miss those. And I'm partial to anything, like any movie that has this aspect of characters trying to escape reality. That's like one of my favorite things ever. Yeah. So yeah, I loved it.
Cool.
Sue me.
I'm glad you bumped up from 3.5 to 4 stars, because I did see that.
What about you? Tell me your initial thought.
So I first saw this when I was in high school. I remember this is the days before Netflix streaming. It was the Netflix disc. You would get the disc in the mail. And I remember our family only had 3 at a time. You'd get 3.
I only had 1 at a time.
You only had the 1 plan?
Yeah.
You got to get on the 3.
I was the only one who used it,
Oh,
though.
yeah. My whole family used it.
Like, guys, we have to get this. It's the new thing. No one was into it. It was just me.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
It was just 1.
It was a big deal in my house growing up. Like in high school. That's like when it came about. But I remember, so I got the disc for this from Netflix, not really knowing Terry Gilliam or what the movie even was. I think I just knew Robert De Niro was in it because I had just seen like Goodfellas and Mean Streets and Taxi Driver and stuff. And it sat on my TV for like a month. And my mom's like, Greg, did you watch this yet? And I was like, no. And she's like, I'm returning it. And she returned it, which was fair. But I remember, so in high school, back when I used to be able to stay up late, there was a theater in Berkeley, California. I believe it was the Shattuck Theater, which I think is still there. But they used to do midnight shows. Maybe they still do. I haven't lived there in like 10 years. But they used to do midnight shows of older kind of like cult movies. Like I saw this there for the first time. I think I saw Blue Velvet there. Not for the first time, but I used to go to a lot of midnight shows. And they did this at midnight. And I was like, oh, that's the movie I like had the Netflix disc for and I never watched it. Let's go. And so this was like junior year of high school, possibly senior year, somewhere right in there. So we're looking at almost 20 years ago. Jesus Christ. So I remember, again, back then I used to stay up till like 4 a.m. every day. So a midnight movie was not a big deal. So my friends and I get in the car, my movie friends and I, and we go out to Berkeley and we go see Brazil, not knowing, like, I hadn't seen a trailer. I didn't know what the movie was. I just knew it was called Brazil and it was like a sci-fi movie. And it stands as one of the probably top 3 movie-going experiences of my life, where I was so unprepared for what came on the screen that night. And I'll never forget the way that it made me feel. And it was the kind of thing, the movies, a lot of critics have called it messy or overlong, and I kind of agree with them. And I still think it's still one of my absolute favorite movies. Top 5, top 10, I don't know exactly, but it's definitely in like my short list of all-time favorite movies. But I will never forget the feeling of sitting there that night. The movie's over at like 2:30 in the morning, and I was tired, but in like the best possible way, because this movie exhausts you.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there just completely blown away by what I was seeing. And I remember just never, and I was even a Python fan at that age too. Like I'd seen the Python movies and, I was a fan, but this, I still like wasn't prepared for Brazil. And I remember thinking like the movie was over and it just affected me so profoundly that the next day I was like, wait, this movie's like on DVD. Like I can go buy this. And I remember like the next day going to Rasputin Music and buying the movie and thinking like, I'm even allowed to own this? Like I couldn't even believe I could own it because the movie was just so amazing. So yeah, this was a love story from day one. It's a movie that every couple years I'll revisit, and I'm always kind of cautious to do it. I'm like, oh, is this like going to hold up? Is this going to be as good as I remember it? And then thankfully, every time I've revisited, I've probably seen the movie like 10 times, maybe a little bit more. But every time I come back to it, thankfully, it is like still amazing.
You still laugh?
It's honestly funnier than ever now. And yeah, I love this movie. And I think it's kind of a movie that a lot of people see like earlier on in their like film journeys. Not to say film bro or anything, because I don't think it's really a film bro movie because it's too funny to be a film bro movie. I feel like all those movies that take themselves very seriously. But this is kind of like an early stop on that train, right? Where it's like, I saw this so long ago. I've seen so many movies that are great since Brazil, but there's something about Brazil. I think I was just like the right age at the right time. I saw it on the big screen for the first time. It was loud. It was like on film, and it just blew my mind. So I love this movie to death. For me, it just kind of represents everything that filmmaking can be in terms of like, look, it's not saying anything terribly profound, right? The characters are not that rich. And those are kind of like the things I gravitate towards the most. Like Sam Lowry is not this like super interesting character. He's kind of a stand-in for the audience.
Yeah. He's an everyman who really probably wouldn't change anything about his life if it wasn't for this girl.
Exactly. Jill. So it's not that I get a lot from it in that sense, but the fact that it is this kind of personal, very bizarre movie that's very, very funny. And honestly, even today, like, could not be more potent. And if you've ever waited in line at like the DMV or something, like you can completely relate to everything in this movie.
I was on the phone with the DMV today.
You were?
Yeah.
So you get it.
Oh,
I mean, who doesn't?
Of my life is like customer service at the moment. So yeah, I get it. Yeah, this is the thing about this movie. And I forgot to point out, so little tidbit, Gilliam wanted to name this movie 1984 and a half.
Yep.
Because of his two main inspirations for the movie, which were 1984 and 8.5.
Yeah.
Which is like, now that I've seen the movie, let's talk a little bit about the 8.5.
Sure, because we just did an 8.5 episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really.
No.
I guess like the whole escaping into fantasy land, but
that's it.
It's very different. Like,
I think it's more, he was a huge Fellini fan.
Yes, he like worships Fellini. Yeah. So.
No, exactly. Because when you said it during the 8.5 episode, you're like, oh, this list of movies that people consider, inspired by. And you said Brazil. And I was like,
I get it now.
Yeah.
I get your,
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But yeah, so let's just talk about the way that this is genre bending. This is like a prime example of,
yeah.
But here's the thing. It's a prime example because it's genre bending, but it never abandons comedy completely. Like, even if in its most serious moments, it's never taking itself too seriously. It doesn't give itself the chance to take itself too seriously. Instead, you're left to think about what you've just learned, about the possible repercussions. Do you get what I mean? It never allows itself to take itself seriously, which is genius. Like, I don't know, like, I laughed when Buttle was arrested. Is that bad? Was I not supposed to? The opening moments when they burst in, I thought that was hilarious.
Wait, the bursting was hilarious, or her signing for her husband was hilarious?
All of it.
Oh,
the bursting was hilarious. They're just like trying to have a quiet Christmas Eve.
Oh, it is great.
These people just burst in and they're screaming. It was funny.
Yeah, and there's the line right before they burst in where the little girl is like, "Mommy, like, how is Santa gonna come down the chimney?"
And he comes down. Yeah. They burst in like. Am I a shitty person for laughing?
No,
was I supposed to laugh?
Yes.
And then what about when he comes to give her the check and she's like really delirious?
Oh my God.
Like,
you're talking about Mrs. Buttle.
Bad. Yes. Yeah. I feel bad, but I laughed.
Like, of course.
And then the little boy comes and hits him.
Attacks him.
But then if you stop and think about it, you're thinking about what you've just seen and you're like, wow, that's really fucked up.
Yeah. You know why? Because she's playing it. Mrs. Buttle is playing it so straight.
But funny, and it's shot in wide. I think it's because it's like shot in wide, and she's like,
and Sam is so nervous, and he's like, she's like watching Marx Brothers or something on TV, and she's like, what have they done with his body? And then he sees the TV, he's like, oh, like he's like laughing at the thing. I mean, like, I don't know anything about that. He's like so nervous,
and he's like, I didn't have to come down here.
Yeah, you're not being very helpful, Mrs. Buttle.
But it's really interesting. It's just interesting how even when you're dealt such injustices on screen, it's still funny.
So Terry Gilliam was a guy, he's American.
Yes.
He grew up in
He went to Birmingham
LA.
High School.
Yeah, he grew up in the Valley. He tells a story about, being a hippie, having long hair, and trying to go to Disneyland, which he loved. And Disneyland wouldn't let him in because he looked like a hippie.
Are you serious?
And that was like a turning point for him. He got involved in Python, overseas, and it's now... He's since denounced. Yeah, he's renounced his American citizenship, so he is a UK citizen. Like he is a Brit. I love
that for him.
But he's an American, so he's a kind of an interesting accent because it's like part LA, part British, part like he's kind of just been
because he spent so much time. Yeah.
But
I know I heard him in that clip. It was kind of funny.
Yeah. But yeah, it's almost like he learned a thing or two when he was in Python, right? It's actually funny.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Can I just say I love Ian Holm in this movie, who is known for kind of playing more serious characters. Like if you think about Ash in Alien, or you think about Bilbo in Lord of the Rings, or a lot of kind of serious characters. And this is my favorite Ian Holm performance as Mr. Kurtzman.
Yes.
Sam's initial boss.
Yeah.
Who is so pathetic. In fact, he has a line, "I'm such a pathetic creature," at one point, because he slams his hand on the desk And then Sam needs him to sign something and his like wrist hurts. And he's like,
I've broken a bone. Yeah. I love how he's not like, I love how they're friends.
Yeah, they are. But yet he yells for him and he doesn't give him a second to get there. He's like, Sam Lowry, please.
Yeah.
Sam Lowry.
Yeah. But I wasn't understanding what was the big deal about having that check that they have to take to Mrs. Buttle.
It's not so much a big deal. It's just that Mr. Kurtzman didn't know the procedure and like how to handle anything. Like Sam was basically running that department.
Okay, got it.
And he was in this cushy job and Sam was doing everything for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about production design?
Yes, we should talk about production design. Let's start with the duct work.
So let's start first by giving credit where credit is due. Norman Garwood and Maggie Gray were credited production designers, art directors.
This is a big deal production wise because this, like in 1989 when Tim Burton did his Batman movie, the look of this movie was like a big inspiration, and even till this day because it has this 1940s noirish feel.
It's very noir.
But it's also very 80s and it's also very...
It's like uber modern, kind of.
Yeah.
It's just like for the 80s, super modern.
Mm-hmm.
And also like in a way that it's... So, okay, wait, no. I have a lot to say about this, so you go first.
No, yeah, there's kind of there's like an Art Decoism to it.
Yeah.
Slightly brutalist.
Yes.
It's a mishmash of things, of sort of whimsical machinery that doesn't quite work. And
I love all those gadgets.
Yeah.
I'm a big sucker for gadgets.
Me
and
too.
I love how they don't work.
They all make cool sounds.
Yeah, all those ducts. And so he basically said that he made a 1984 for 1984. Because in the book 1984, it takes place in the far future.
Mm-hmm.
So he made a movie, and it even opens, it says somewhere in the 20th century.
Yes.
Right? Is it 20th or
20th?
It's not even 21st, it's 20th.
Yeah, it's 20th.
Yeah. So I love that. I love how it's
I'm pretty
contemporary.
sure.
No, it is. It's contemporary.
Yeah.
And because every time someone tries to depict the future, it becomes obsolete, right?
Mm-hmm.
It always looks silly in a few years. And I love how it's kind of this mishmash, as you said. It has this noir feel while simultaneously being kind of steampunk. And it's kind of like, okay, this could take place like hypothetically, if this movie came out in 1985, it could take place like 10 years later, in 1995, let's say. And it would work because it's like, okay, old fashioned's kind of coming back in style, but also futuristic. It's just this really cool balance and this world that they've created.
Yeah. I think too that Terry Gilliam oozes through this movie in every frame because I mean he's one of those directors when he's firing on all cylinders, and I don't think he's not one of my favorite filmmakers just because he's not consistent. Like he has some really great movies and then he has some that are not great. And then there's some that are like, okay, this is definitely his best. I think very few people will like contest that, but he comes through. And if you watch, because so when he first started with Python, he was in charge of the animations. So if you've seen Flying Circus or any of the Python stuff and you see those crazy cutout animations, totally absurdist, surreal animations, like that was him and that's his style and that's what he brought to Python. He wasn't so much a sketch writer on Python or a performer, he was the animator. So it translates so well to film. This is his third film, his third feature. And he just comes through in you just feel that. You like if you had seen this and you didn't know it was a Terry Gilliam movie, I think you would know like, oh, there's something. Like I think the guy that animated the Python stuff did this, because it's like when they open up the heating in Sam's apartment and like the bags are like breathing and it's like there's so much in every frame. Like in every shot there's like a million things going on. And it's almost to the point of, and I know people that can't stand this movie and I get it because it is kind of like a live action cartoon.
It is. And
I love live action cartoons when they're done well.
Yeah.
Like Gremlins 2, which is an absolute masterpiece. But yeah, this movie's brimming with just and Terry Gilliam just so perfectly brings his style through in this film, and it's just leaking from the movie. Like there's not even enough movie to contain his like style.
Yeah.
It's rare that you see that.
Did you know a lot of this was okay, let's talk about the location. So this was shot like in Europe, mostly in the UK, but actually on location in a lot of spots, which is so surprising. Like it looks like it's so fake, but it's not.
Yeah.
So it was shot Some of the street shots were shot in the suburb outside of Paris. His apartment building is a real building in that suburb.
I didn't know that.
Like when he's walking through it, that's a real building. It's called, there's like the French name.
Which you can do. You speak French. No.
No. So it's this real apartment complex. And a lot of it was shot like on this old flour mill.
Yeah.
A lot of like the office was created on this old flour mill.
The end scene is like a silo, like a water silo or something.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the end scene is built on it was built in a real cooling tower of a decommissioned nuclear power plant in London.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
And then like the doctor's office, the plastic surgeon, Jim Broadbent, his office is like the Arab Hall of this really old manor in England. It's real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah. I think because it's such a diverse like set of locations, it all ties into the film because it's so, you never quite know what you're going to get. And I think too, you save a lot of money filming in real places.
Yeah. And then like, for example, so for the funeral chapel at the very end, when he's in his kind of like escape fantasy, and it's the funeral of his mom's friend who had too much plastic surgery, and
she had a complication with her complication.
Her complication had a complication. So he bursts into that funeral parlor. That is actually a club in London. Discotheque.
Okay. I didn't know that.
But it reminded me so much of Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, totally. With the neon crosses.
Yeah. And then that long hallway, the coffin at the end. It was so, like, I saw that so much when I saw that. It was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. I love that it was shot at all these locations.
Yeah. I bet that Baz Luhrmann was a big fan of this movie. Another kind of like master stylist.
Yes.
Like, so he's so good at doing the Baz Luhrmann thing.
Yeah, he is.
Again, like Gilliam, not the most consistent filmmaker, but when he's good, he's like so good.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But
what did you think about, okay, this movie's a mess. And I think that's the appeal. For me, that's the appeal. Normally I don't like messy movies, but because it's so brimming with imagination and invention and stuff. Humor that I just go with it and I can't imagine it any other way. But was there a point in this movie where you're like, okay, like let's wrap this up, or like because I do think there's a stretch.
Maybe when he goes to the party, his mom's party. Because he had said before he's responding to the
Sydney telegram.
I can't even think about it without laughing. He responds to her saying, Mother, I can't go to your party. And then he goes, and then he's just hanging out there. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I thought he couldn't come. Second of all, what's he doing here? What's the point of this? That scene a little bit. Other than that, not really. Maybe like, no. Now I'm just fishing. Now I'm trying to come up with a problem when I don't see one.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you think is a mess about it?
I think so when Sam goes back to like delete Jill like off the computer, I feel like that scene it
is a little random.
The movie's kind of moving so quickly, and then that whole like scene is slows down, and it's like, okay, this could have been like shortened a little bit.
Maybe.
But again, I also wouldn't change anything about it because it's all part of the charm of the movie. It's that when it's over, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Right?
So, well, as we mentioned earlier, the version I watched, there was no interrogation scene where it's revealed that Jill is dead.
Yeah, you saw the American version, which is about 10 minutes shorter than the European one, but still like 40 minutes longer than the Love Conquers All.
Fine though, because I don't know if I like getting confirmation that she's dead. I don't think it's necessary.
I think it is necessary.
Why?
Because it just makes it that much bleaker. Like nothing turned out for him.
It makes it bleaker, but then it makes his final fantasy like a complete fantasy from the start. You know that it's not true because he ends up in Jill's car, and if she's dead, it reveals it.
My argument,
I was shocked. Listen, I was shocked at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that maybe he's like, yeah, it's kind of fever dreamy, especially that whole funeral sequence, and his mom, who keeps getting younger and younger because of her plastic surgery, she appears as Jill in the final sequence.
I think it's pretty blatant that it's a fantasy.
Think it is. I think maybe he's just having like a fever dream, and then when he ends up in Jill's truck, I don't know. I could have bought it. I could have bought it. That's all I'm saying. And then when I snapped out of it, I was like, oh, yes. Okay.
Robert De Niro dies by getting covered with paperwork.
Well, he doesn't die.
He disappears. He disintegrates.
It still could be fever dreamy to me. That's all I'm saying. I was still not 100% sure that it wasn't happening.
Well, because there's like stuff like, there's like Eternal Sunshine stuff where Sam will open a door and then he'll be somewhere else entirely new.
I know. But as I recall, you were the one who, a few episodes back, I don't remember what movie was it for, where you said, like, you always believe it. Like Wizard of Oz, yeah, that happened.
Oh.
What was it? What were we talking about?
Wait.
Oh, Matter of Life and Death.
Matter of Life and Death.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, why?
Well, because here's the thing. Because the whole movie operates on a certain logic, and things are ridiculous and it's heightened, but everything makes sense. And that whole fever dream sequence is clearly out of place because it is this like one thing leads to another. He falls into the coffin, into this abyss, and then he's
Odessa Steps sequence.
and then he's literally in his nightmares with like in like that chasm where like all those nightmare creatures are. You know what I mean? So it was like the kind of thing where like he was even in his dream. Where it never even occurred to me, like, oh, he's actually doing this right now.
It actually occurred to me, is all I will say.
No. Yeah, and that's totally valid. I think.
But if I had heard that Jill was dead, then it wouldn't have.
Right. I like that she dies because nothing can turn out well in this movie.
Yeah. Okay, Odessa Steps. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Like, legit Odessa Steps. Like, the same exact shot of soldiers walking down. A woman with glasses gets shot in the eye. Yeah. It's exactly the Odessa Steps.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said before, I'm all for, that's one of my classic character traits that I love, is just like a character who, when the news comes on, switches to music when they're listening to the radio.
There's been a terrorist bomb.
I love that. Like, I love characters who escape into memories or fantasies or daydreams. I love his fantasies. I think that they're really great. Oh. He's kind of like David Bowie, like a little bit.
Yeah.
Come on.
Maybe.
I think he is.
Okay, I'm putting this out there into the world. One of my big wishes in life is
You're wearing a David Bowie t-shirt.
I am wearing a David Bowie t-shirt. One of my biggest wishes in life is to have a Christmas tree topper, because this is a Christmas movie, because it takes place at Christmas time, of Sam as the angel on my tree. I search for it. It doesn't exist. Someone that's good with their hands and makes things needs to just make it. I'll have to commission someone someday. I'm just putting it out there into the world. If you know somebody that can make this for me, please put me in touch with them.
I love that.
That's going to be my Christmas tree topper for the rest of my life.
New mission.
Yeah.
New mission. But yeah, I mean...
let's talk about the dream sequences.
I mean, Sam is essentially just a movie lover. Mm-hmm. You know, he
has movie posters in his...
he does.
Yeah.
He does.
Yep, exactly.
And so it's so easy for him to imagine up this fantasy, this total fairy tale.
Yeah.
It's great. And I even love how Jill, the first moment we meet her, so the kind of government issued computers that everyone has, also exact reference to 1984. Mm-hmm. Something is infiltrating their system, and all these old movies keep showing that aren't supposed to be showing, right?
Yep.
And I love that the first moments we meet Jill, she's in her bathtub and she's just watching like a Marx Brothers movie, and she's laughing. Like, that's a great character intro. That just shows that like her and Sam are kind of on the same wavelength a little bit. But I loved that. I love that about him. Yeah, he has the posters in his house. And, you know, the song Brazil actually appears in a number of other films.
Yeah, it's a really popular song. Yeah,
it's in Notorious by Hitchcock, which I don't remember.
I don't remember
but it is. Yeah, it is in a Bing Crosby musical called Road to Rio. It's in the Judy Garland Star is Born. So he is really much like, it's in Stardust Memories. Mm-hmm. He is very much living in this movie world.
So did you know? So the initial spark for this movie was Terry Gilliam. I think he was in a very dreary part of London or somewhere in the UK, and he saw this really nasty beach that had like a bunch of trash on it. But there was a guy, and it was like a gray overcast day. But there was a guy sitting on a beach towel at the beach, and he had a little radio which was playing Brazil. Aww. And that whole thing, that was the spark for the movie.
That's really cute.
He saw that and he was like, "Oh, that's the move. I'm making that movie."
That's really cute.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
Yeah. Let's talk briefly, Jill and Sam's chemistry because I know that's something we touch on often, and the romance is a genuine like driving force of this movie.
It's so funny. I died when she was when he's kind of like trying to save her from being arrested the first time, and they're in the car and he's telling her I love you, and he's trying to like get it across so many times he writes it on the windshield. And I love when she turns to him and she goes like, wait, let me get a good look at you. And she goes, oh yeah, really attractive, really sexy.
Yeah. He's like, what
funny.
did I do to deserve such luck? And then she kicks him out of the car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good looking, sexy. Just my type.
I don't believe you.
Why not?
Well, I just don't deserve such terrific luck.
Damn right.
It's funny.
Yeah. I think, okay, I don't think Kim Greist is necessarily the strongest actor. She's also the mom from Homeward Bound, if you remember.
Yes!
I don't think she's the strongest actor, and I don't think they have any chemistry really at all. But you know what? Again, it's like beside the point, I guess. The movie is just so overwhelming.
I mean, does he really love her, or does he just have like
She's
this
an
weird
infatuation.
fantasy about her?
Yeah. They never really get to know each other.
Never.
No.
Never.
So you didn't have a problem with the lack of chemistry.
Surprisingly, no. I actually hadn't thought about it until you just brought it up.
Because there's so much more
It
going on,
didn't
right?
distract me at all.
Yeah. Let's talk. Okay, because he's one of my boys. Let's talk about Michael Palin.
Sam, we've always been close, haven't we?
Yes, Jack?
Well, until this all blows over, just stay away from me.
Again, really interesting guy. Prior to this, had already done some dramatic work. He's in a really great movie from the early 80s called The Missionary. And it's him and Maggie Smith. And it's this kind of like, in fact, a lot of the movie is shot at Highclere Castle where they shot Downton.
No way.
Yeah, and it's this kind, it's it's a good movie. He plays this missionary who has to like reform this like group of prostitutes, and it's a comedy, but like anyway, he made a lot of interesting films, and this movie cast him as one of the biggest villains. Clearly just a guy with no soul at all, completely heartless, who has to then at the end, although he shows compassion when Sam is in the chair at the end and he has to come up to him and torture him. If you notice, one of the torture devices is like a rubber ball. It's like
so funny.
I don't know if there's a pacifier or something, but yeah, it's like a couple knives and it's like a rubber ball. But yeah, I mean, really interesting casting. Again, Gilliam was best buds with him. After Python, they kind of did stuff together. Gilliam's movie before this, Time Bandits, Michael Palin was also in, and Michael Palin helped like write that with Gilliam. So they're pals. He was in Gilliam's first movie, Jabberwocky. But yeah, this is I was gonna say it's my favorite Michael Palin role, but him in A Fish Called Wanda is pretty amazing as the stutterer.
Yes.
When he gets the French fries stuck up his nose.
It's so good.
But yeah, just interesting casting, because again, Michael Palin was kind of like the nice guy of Python. He was kind of like the heartthrob, and just funny to cast him in this role. I thought it worked really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
So this does belong to one of those cool, this is a Christmas movie, kind of like Eyes Wide Shut is a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I just like that. It didn't have to be set at Christmas, but it adds a little extra touch.
It adds an extra little like tinge of pain.
Yeah, exactly.
It does. It does. This kind of it makes, I feel like sad Christmases are just so powerful. They are. A Christmas that's not like happy is just so powerful.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's used to this movie's advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially the scene you showed me, which I hadn't seen. So Mr. Helpman is dressed as Santa because he's going to go see some orphans. As he tells Sam that Jill is dead. He's dressed as Santa Claus.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's so good. So I'm watching Severance right now on TV. It's on Apple TV. And I'm not like, I don't have time for that many shows. Between this podcast and my film club and just my general watch list, I don't have time for series. And I know that's something that we both share is like, we prefer movies over TV.
Yeah.
I am watching Severance on Apple TV, and I actually like it quite a bit. And there's a lot in Severance that it came from Brazil.
I'm sure.
And it's a very like, It's a very like suffocating dystopian workplace, like drama, sci-fi kind of thing. But yeah, just to show that, you know, Brazil's influence is still like as potent as ever.
Yeah. I've heard really good things.
It's good. Check it out.
Maybe if I had the time.
I know. What did you think about the scene where Sam gets promoted to information retrieval?
Maybe that's where it was a little messy.
Oh, I love that stuff.
No. I like the scene. I love the desk being pulled.
The guy next door.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a whiz with that thing.
Yeah,
I'm not going to elope with her.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It is funny. It is funny.
Yeah. That guy's actually one of the writers.
He is, yeah.
Yeah. Hilarious.
He is. The other writer, Tom.
Yeah, Tom Stoppard.
He wrote Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead.
Yeah, so he was kind of known for his like absurdist dramas.
Yeah.
Perfect match.
It worked great.
Yeah. This is so good. This is so good. I mean, what are you going to do?
It's so good. And yeah.
Well, it's funny.
It did very much remind me of like, it felt like a movie that I had seen before. I think, but not in a bad way, in a very like 80s comedy way. Like, I don't know, maybe it just made me like nostalgic. It made me feel like maybe I've seen this before when I was young. Like, I don't know.
Huh.
Is that weird?
No, it's I don't know. I didn't get that feeling, but I also saw it when I was in high school. But for me, it was like I had never seen anything like that.
Kind of reminded me of like All That Jazz too, a little bit.
Interesting.
Which was also on that list of movies influenced by 8.5.
Care to elaborate?
Just kind of like the fantasy, and Jill in the fantasy reminds me a little bit
Jessica Lange.
of Jessica Lange in the fantasies and All About Jazz.
I see that.
Yeah.
Both great movies.
Yeah, agreed.
That's what they have in common. Well, yeah. Do you want to do Sight and Sound?
I do want to do Sight and Sound.
Let's start with you. What's your favorite sight?
Okay. My favorite sight is the shot of Robert De Niro wearing those hilarious glasses.
Oh my God, yes.
When he comes to fix the heater.
We barely talked about Robert De Niro, actually.
I know, we didn't.
Should we say something really quick?
I mean, what's there to say besides
he had a great
just
time
like
on set.
thank you. Yeah.
What
thank
a cool
you to Robert De Niro for doing this movie, because what a great role for him.
Yeah.
I love seeing him be silly. I love silly De Niro.
He wanted the Michael Palin role, but
really?
Terry Gilliam was like, I actually
I'm
told
so glad.
he already had that. Yeah. I mean, he's only in a handful of scenes, but the scenes he's in, he's great, and he's so not Robert De Niro, which is the key.
I know.
And Bob Hoskins with the long brim hats.
Yeah, what's with that?
It's so good.
Who fixed your ducks?
Told you before, they fix themselves.
Oh, yeah? And where did this come from, eh? Out of your nostril? Eh?
The 27 B-stroke 6, and when the guy starts flipping out when he mentions it, and he like hits him across the face with a wrench, and then he has to be like carried out, and he's like wheezing.
Yeah.
So good. But yeah, sorry, you were saying your favorite sight.
That's my favorite sight.
Robert De Niro with the
glasses that make his eyes huge.
Yeah, it's really funny.
It's just so funny. What's your favorite sight?
I mean, sight and sound for this movie are so hard.
It is hard, but I went with both of mine are funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to with this movie. You know what my favorite sight is? This is the first one that came to mind while I was watching it. Again, most scenes in this movie are like my favorite sight, but it's the scene when Sam is coming home on the subway. Mm-hmm. It's like a kind of, it's a subway train type thing. And it's like the height of the sort of noir feeling of this movie. And there's these beautiful colors on Sam's face, and the way that the subway kind of drifts into the station and people like file out. Mm-hmm. And the music, it's something we have not mentioned yet, is Michael Kamen's amazing music. We'll talk about it in a second. Beautiful score. Rest in peace. He's no longer with us, but I think this is his like crowning achievement as far as scores go. This score has enchanted me from day one. And I think the combination of that with the music, it's not my sight and my sound, it's just my sight, but it's just Sam getting off that subway train almost in it feels like in slow motion, and it's just very it's kind of like wistful, and it's just an amazing,
it is great,
amazing image.
I had a runner-up, I really love when he's at Mrs. Buttle's house delivering the check, and he gets tackled by their son, and then this mirror breaks, and there's all these glass shards on the ground, and that's the first time he sees Jill. She's in like a glass shard.
Yeah.
Because she's up top, right? And she sticks her head down, and she says, "Oh, Mrs. Buttle, are you okay?" And I love that. I love like her face on the glass shard.
Is that the first time, or does he see her at the ministry before that? Like through a crowd, like at the desk or something?
He does, you're right.
But yeah, that's like the first time he gets a good look at her.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
What about sound? Oh,
I'm just going to play it.
It'll speak for itself.
Mrs. Idol, I request the pleasure of your company at her apartment tonight from 8:30 to midnight to celebrate the completion of a recent cosmetic surgery.
Oh my God.
It's so good. He's so confused.
It was just so unexpected.
Yeah.
And when it happened, it just wouldn't stop. She keeps going. Cosmetic surgery. Like, it just keeps going. And I was just in pieces. I was crying.
Would you take that job? Would you do that?
No. In fact, I looked it up. I did look it up. They go for about like 100 a gram.
Really?
A telegram. I
Oh,
mean.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, $100 a telegram. I mean, it's not bad.
It's not bad at all. You know what? I just remembered. I believe it's in The Fisher King, one of Gilliam's later movies with Robin Williams and Jeff Bridges. There's actually another singing telegram.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think
was his
so.
trademark.
Yeah.
But they still do them. You can look it up. You could hire one.
I have a friend of a friend who does it.
Really?
Yeah.
Honestly, I would love to receive one. I don't know if I would do it. I'm putting that out into the world. I would love to receive one of these.
You've heard it here. We have 2 wishes for this episode.
Please make them come true. Someone, somewhere.
I mean, for sound, this is
It's
so
hard.
difficult.
It was really hard.
Because not only do you have all this great dialogue that's really witty and funny and dry, it's amazing. There's so many funny lines in this that are delivered so well. There's like when Mr. Kurtzman is talking to Sam about like how he turned down the thing, and he's like, "I signed it for you," and Sam's like, "You didn't."
I didn't sign the form.
I did it for you.
You didn't.
I did.
You didn't.
I did.
What did you do that for? That's what you wanted, isn't it?
Like, there's just so many great lines like that. So there's great lines. There's great music. Michael Kamen's score that incorporates the Brazil theme is amazing. And there's so many great sounds of like gadgets whirring and like things going off. So this was so hard for me.
Give me a few.
Because this is my personal print, I'm going to give you 3.
Do it. Do it.
Okay. So my first one, I'll go in ascending order. So the last one is going to be my favorite sound. Let's start with the least favorite. Still great. Still my 3rd favorite sound. It's the TV. When Sam is waking up in the morning, the TV pops out from the wall and starts playing this little jingle that's always stuck in my head.
Hello, Sammy. Oh, you've got to see it. Can't you see it?
Yeah, so I just like that. That's nice. The next one I have is just the sound of like the breathing lungs in the walls when like Robert De Niro is tinkering around in there. Here it is.
Mind you, if ever they could prove that I've been working on their equipment. Well, now that's a pipe of a different color.
But wouldn't it be simpler just to,
Hold
work
this
with...
for me, please.
Sorry, yes. I was saying, wouldn't it be simpler to work for central services?
Couldn't stand the pay. getting warm.
You couldn't what? Couldn't stand the what?
Paperwork. Couldn't stand the paperwork.
Yeah, it adds so much to the scene. It adds a certain chaotic energy.
Yeah.
You just constantly hear this
chaotic.
breathing. Yeah. I
This
love how
movie is-
chaotic it is.
Yeah.
I know some people who are like averse to like
Chaos.
chaotic movies.
Yeah.
Like they stress them out. I like gravitate towards them.
I wouldn't say I gravitate towards them. This one's not that bad.
Like, you know how everyone says they like had a heart attack in Uncut Gems?
That I don't understand.
No, like
I
I'm
don't
thriving
understand.
off of that
Yeah.
energy. And then my favorite sound, I have to go with Michael Kamen here. And it's his cue for the end, because when I first saw this and it ends with Sam strapped to that chair in this like huge silo, it's just like hits you like a punch in the stomach.
It is sad.
And then it sounds like Gene Kelly is singing the Brazil there. And then it turns into this kind of like, you hear this like chorus come in that starts singing like this very childlike rendition of Brazil.
Another difference between the version I watched and the version you watched is at the end of mine, he's in that torture chamber, but then it kind of turns into like clouds around him. And when that music comes up that you just played us,
It softens it for the American audience.
I don't know if it softens it. I think it's kind of just like a visual representation of
Yeah.
what's kind of happening.
Yeah. I like but we got that before that scene is what it's going on and what's actually going on in his head.
Yes.
And I feel like the cross dissolve with the clouds is like unnecessary because I like just seeing him in that silo. But yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Pauline?
What does she say?
It's a segment where we read Pauline Kael's review of the film. So she calls it a melancholy, joke-ridden view of the horribleness of where we are now and the worse horribleness of where we're heading. It's like a stoned slapstick 1984, a nightmare comedy in which the comedy is just an aspect of the nightmarishness. True. She says, visually, it's an original bravura piece of movie making with a weirdly ingenious vertical quality. The camera always seems to be moving up and down, rarely across. You get the feeling that people live and work squashed at the bottom of hollow towers. The clothes, the furnishings, and the ancient TV sets and assorted gadgetry suggest that nothing has been made or manufactured since the 40s. It's a thrift shop world of the future. The central character, played by Jonathan Pryce, is a lowly clerk, a drone, in pursuit of the girl he has glimpsed in his dreams. He runs afoul of the state apparatus, and there's a super realistic inevitability about this. The episodes lack dramatic definition, just as the gags do. They all run together and blur, and the film is both torpid and frantic. Yet Gilliam's vision is an organic thing on the screen, and that's a considerable achievement. Price's dead-eyed performance is charmless, but Robert De Niro turns up in a cameo role as a prankster daredevil, a freedom fighter, chomping on a cigar and all revved up. He's the life of the party. And Katherine Hellman, as Price's mother, delivers an elegant, broad caricature of a woman obsessed with plastic surgery. We just talk about quickly how much I love the end where the mom's friend, literally her body just turns into like
it's crazy.
jello because she's had so much plastic surgery.
Yeah, it is crazy.
So yeah, that was Pauline.
She's like lukewarm.
I'd say she's even better than lukewarm. She's like, yeah, it kind of all blurs together, but wow, that's really something.
Yeah.
Like she's very impressed by it.
She kind of slammed Jonathan Pryce.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah. I think I liked him more than she did in this.
Yeah, me too.
For me, this is like whenever I think of Jonathan Pryce, it's the only thing I can think of. That it's just such a special movie.
It is.
But
unfortunately, I think of Pirates of the Caribbean.
That's right. He is
It's
in
true.
Pirates.
I just do. I wish I didn't.
Well, should we do Letterboxd? Someone gave it half a star and said, one of the biggest cinematic disappointments I've ever experienced in my life. With an average of 4.0 on Letterboxd, I thought it'd be a safe bet that I like this movie, but the reality couldn't be further away from that. About 23 minutes in, I wished it would end, but it just kept going on for what felt like an eternity. The set pieces and costumes look like a one-to-one copy from 1984 and the like. The first half of the movie just seems like an explosion of unrelated ideas and themes that never really come together, and its critical comment on consumerism and bureaucracy gets stale after 10 minutes. You watch 1.5 hours of absolutely despicable human beings, and when a bomb goes off, you're supposed to feel anything more than complete and utter indifference. Also, the romance between the main characters comes out of nowhere, and the girl falls for our protagonist because he tells her how he dreamed about loving her. I don't think that's how it works. The only good thing about this film is De Niro, who barely appears.
I love that about it, that he's barely in it, though. It's really great.
It is great.
Someone gave it 4 stars and just said, would be pissed off if this happened to me. I'm liking like the higher star ones that are just like, I don't know, kind of witty. I've noticed.
Someone gave it half a star and said, this is all caps, the whole thing. Intolerable shit. Fuck Jim Broadbent. I hate him. Yeah, why
him?
I know, he's such a sweetheart.
I love him. He's so funny.
Yeah. Have you seen the Mike Leigh movie Life is Sweet?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, Jackie, you have to see it.
It's good.
It's so good, and it's the best Jim Broadbent role. Like, he's so good in it. It's kind of a, I guess, dramedy. That's I hate using that term, but it's so good. It's so funny and light, and Timothy Spall is in it, and Timothy Spall is hilarious. It's just a great movie.
I like Mike Leigh.
And you got to see it. And Jim Broadbent like really shines in it. Yeah, great movie.
Cool.
One of my favorites.
Let's do it next time.
Someone gave it 1 star and said, felt like a really fucked up episode of Doctor Who. This is the most disturbing comedy, in quotes, I have ever seen. I feel angry and claustrophobic.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that for them.
Yeah, me too.
4.5 stars. Would it be fair for me to assume that the Brazilian tourism industry must absolutely loathe this film?
It has
They
nothing
might
to
like
do
it,
with Brazil.
honestly.
They're probably,
and I love that.
yeah.
I love like weird titles like that.
Yeah, it's just the song.
Licorice Pizza.
Yeah, licorice pizza, yeah. Well, that was Brazil. Do you have any parting
job.
words?
No.
Have you seen any more other Terry Gilliam?
Mm-mm.
Time Bandits, Fear.
I've seen Monty Python. He co-directed it,
He
right?
did, yeah. Have you seen
Holy Grail. When I
know.
think Holy Grail, like that's what I just
right? You
yeah.
think, yeah. What about like Time Bandits or
No, I don't.
Fisher
think I have.
King, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? Huh? Okay. Yeah, there's more good stuff. There's more good stuff. You'd like Fisher. I think you'd like Fisher King. Really good, and that has like a real emotional core to it too. And Robin Williams is really good in it.
Aw, Robin.
Yeah. That was Brazil. This
was fun.
I was very excited to do this episode. It's one of my favorites. Any chance I get to talk about Brazil, and especially the fact that you hadn't seen it, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And I love talking to people. I feel like I've dragged so many people to this movie that ended up hating it.
And you liked that I liked it.
Yeah, but also if you'd hated it, that would have been fun too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that'll ever happen one day.
I'm sure it will.
If we do Dracula.
Oh, Bram Stoker's Dracula, maybe. We'll see. But I think that's it for this week on Seen and Heard. Next week, we'll be back to our normal scheduled programming. We're doing Werner Herzog's Aguirre, The Wrath of God from 1972.
Until next time, this has been Seen and Heard.
Thanks for joining us. We hope to see you back next week. Until then, have a great week.
And don't forget to fill out your 27B stroke 6.
Don't forget, it's very important.
Bye.
I'm a bit of a stickler for paperwork.
Oh, same.
This has been an official podcast of the Arroyo Film Club. Seen and Heard is Jacqueline Pistachian and Greg Kleinschmidt. Theme music by Andrew Cox.